Maybe you've noticed that whenever you were measuring your progress, being on a project or your health or, like your fitness level, every time you're measuring these and you see some progress, it's like really motivating. Have you noticed that? Like you go on the scale, you see that you've lost some fat, or you start working on your side project, a business, and all of a sudden there's all these page views on your website, or you start getting some dollars coming in. Ain't that great? Ain't that super motivating? Well, that's amazing, but if you need to see this progress just like that in order to move forward and stay motivated, then there is most probably something you're doing wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. Actually, I also am just like you, and I tend to get demotivated when things start moving slow again, or maybe there even seems to be a backlash. But I don't know if you've looked at the stock market or any type of growth for that matter, actually. Most of the time it will tend to go up, and at some point there is a correction and then it goes up again. I would tend to say that, as I've mentioned in the past, I'm a strong believer that life is made in cycles. So most of the time, growth is not going to be linear. So you lose some weight and then it seems like you gain a little and then you lose again. Or if we talk about your business, maybe you do some progress and then all of a sudden the page views drop again or the dollars, only to bounce back at some point. This is definitely a pattern that is very recurring. So first of all, it's really important that you know about those cycles so that you don't get freaked out when the stock market seems to crash, because most probably it's going to bounce back fairly quickly afterwards in 1 year or two. At least historically it's been the case. I'm not doing any financial advice here, of course. And it's a little bit the same about your fitness pattern. Of course, if you see that you're really plateauing over a certain amount of time, it's maybe time to reevaluate your strategies. But if we're talking about a week, 2 weeks, or even a month, most probably you just need to build this new foundation so that you can break out in the next couple of weeks after that. So you need the patience. And you need to stay motivated and keep doing what you're doing if you feel like it's brought the results so far. And this means that, my dear, you have to learn to see progress where there seems to be none. Yes, seeing your progress is absolutely key for you to stay motivated. So how can you do this? Well, there's a few techniques you could really use in order to trick yourself to think you're doing progress whenever you're in a plateau. When it comes to your fitness level, for instance, instead of focusing on the end result, say the amount of muscle mass you have built or the fat you've lost, you could simply focus on the fact that you're trying to beat your record as of number of days you've been consistent with your fitness plan, for instance. So maybe an app that helps you tracking, or simply having a notebook where you keep, checking the marks, would be something that's showing you some sort of progress, even though it's not linked to the end result. So I think that's really important. There's other areas where you can notice that. For instance, I've been practicing meditation daily for a while now, and even though I'm certainly still not as good as a monk in my daily life, and I would really certainly like to be much better at handling every type of challenge that comes in my life, but I can definitely notice the difference. Like, I at least pause and notice, and I notice some patterns of my reactions, and I integrate them into my thinking, reasoning, and I try to improve myself in the future. So it takes time, but I'm really focusing on the progress I'm making rather than seeing the glass half empty, if you will. Now, even if you feel like you haven't done any progress at all, you should also know that trying something and failing at it and knowing that this doesn't work and that you have to try something else is also progress. I know that we really very often forget about that one, but let's say you're trying to improve your diet. I've had that in the past. I've had tremendous pains and I've had to work about this problem over and over again. And what would happen is sometimes I would get really frustrated because nothing seemed to be curing my pains. And you can imagine that waking up 4 or 5 times a week with a tremendous pain that is actually really impairing is not great. And you can feel really frustrated. There are phases where you give up and you just think this is the way you should be living from now on. But at some point I realized that even though this diet didn't necessarily solve my problem and this one either, well, but at least I knew, okay, it's not that. It's not that. Okay, this isn't the problem or this isn't the solution. So I gotta keep looking. And you know, you're doing the work, you're doing the groundwork, and at some point you most probably will have a breakthrough, but you have to give yourself credit for trying stuff, for keeping, you know, at it and working on it and learning everything that you've learned so far. Because even though I didn't entirely solve my problem, with all these trials and errors, I kind of saw some relationships between stuff I was eating or even like situations in my life that were like increasing or decreasing the pain. So I wasn't there yet, but I definitely felt at some point like, ooh, actually gathering all these lessons I've had, I have made tremendous progress. I know all of these things now. So I hope by now you've realized that progress definitely takes a lot of diverse ways of seeing it. So I think it's a little bit up to you, and it's actually your work to figure out how you can keep seeing progress in those times that are more difficult. I personally definitely love to kind of separate end result from other types of progress, because very often when we get too attached to the progress in form of end results, that's where it starts being a pain, because at some point the end results cannot keep growing exponentially. They do plateau at some point. So it's really important at this stage to look for other signals of your progress. And I personally, I definitely love my Excel sheets. And when it comes to the business, for instance, instead of really just focusing on the end results, I very often like to keep track of the content I'm putting out there, or, you know, like maybe shift the focus from what you cannot directly control to stuff that you can definitely directly control. This way it will be much more motivating. I hope you found this video useful. If you want to learn more about good habits and other ways to stay motivated, please subscribe and also leave a comment, press the like button, let me know what you've thought, positive or negative, so that I can improve in the future. And in the meantime, have fun staying motivated and finding your way to see progress everywhere. Progress and result. How you can see, no.